of top corporate players in Nigeria, professionals, and entrepreneurs. The depth and breadth of the Alumni Association is amazing. And one of the very interesting experiences I had as alumni president was to walk through an airport. Sometimes international professionals, somebody greets me, and when I look astonished, he says to me, "You are my president of the alumni association is amazing." And one of the very interesting, and so this shows you how powerful alumni president this is. And with almost 8,000 professionals, he certainly greets me with like when I look astonished because taking a you are my president membership list, you are my LBSA. It's like the who's who in corporate Nigeria. That's it.
I was really inspired
Someone certainly
go to Lagos
when I
Business School
look
for a couple of reasons.
because
One was I met a few people who had been to
it's like the who's who in corporate Nigeria. That's it.
I was really inspired
Someone certainly
go to Lagos Business School for a couple of reasons.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure to have us all on this platform this morning. Beautiful morning. Please, if you can hear me, just respond up. Dr. Chidi, it's good to see you.
Good morning.
It's been a while. How are you doing today, sir?
Very well, thank you. How are you? Good. Good morning.
Great. Good morning. So it's my pleasure again to welcome every one of us to this edition of our webinar. We're getting started in a few minutes, and a few things that I would like us to run through. Good morning, Vanessa. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes. Just a few things on the conversations this morning. A roadmap on how we're going to have this session today. We'll start with a few minutes of expert opinions. Vanessa and Angela will be on ground to lead us through insightful conversations on the recent developments in the Africa retail space. And then we'll take about an hour or so to have a panel discussion. Dr. Chidi Okoro will be leading us in that session alongside other faculties that we'll have this morning. And then we'll take a short break and have a few commercials. And then we'll return with an experience sharing session. And then we'll wrap up with word from the academy, as well as get the opportunity to network. And so cutting down to the chase this morning, our first session this morning will be taken by Vanessa Bogal. Vanessa Bogal is a faculty marketing at the Lagos Business School. She boasts more than 20 years of experience across Europe, Africa, and South America. And as a marketing consultant, coach, and university lecturer, working for Anakin International, Coca-Cola, United Biscuits, and a host of other global organizations. She's an expert on brand development, and she's launched in charge of management as well as consumer understanding, marketing segmentation, and brand positioning. Vanessa is currently marketing consultant specialized in Africa. She has consulted widely with a broad range of businesses, both small and medium-sized enterprises, and as well as multinational companies. And she holds an MBA from ISADE Business School in Barcelona. And she has also the SAMS Masters from EC Business School in Paris, France. So it's a pleasure to have on board this morning Vanessa Bogal to take us through the perspective on the South and Western African consumer trends and what we're seeing. So Vanessa, over to you to take us through these conversations this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, this is a very exciting topic today. I was, reading a lot and also exploring what are the latest trends, because we had a recent conference before Christmas, and I was wondering, have things changed? And yes, we have the inflation, we have this Ukrainian war, we have all these things going on, and still the trends are very positive. So I was like, okay, so I'm really happy to do the presentation, because when Chidi, we were discussing about it, I thought, oh gosh, maybe, am I gonna say positive things about what's happening in the world? And no, it is really positive. So I was, before talking about retail itself, we know how is the consumer behaving, and talking really about the customer journey. And this is true all over the world. We see that the customers, our shoppers, our consumers are really online today. So it's a kind of, and something we already mentioned recently. So we talk really about the omni-channel consumer. So it's not only talking about shopping online, but our shoppers, our consumers, they are really connected digitally. So when they are looking for our brands, they are looking for a nearby shop, they start online. And there is a recent study by McKinsey that was saying that 65% of the customer journeys are beginning online. This is a worldwide trend. And you would say, yeah, but this is worldwide. What is happening in Africa? What is happening in sub-Saharan Africa? And well, apparently, when we go into internet penetration, we say, okay, we are still low. We are growing. So our African shoppers are having more mobiles, more smartphones, which is essentially the major tool. I mean, the most important tool they are using to connect to the internet. But we are heavy users in Africa, which is fantastic news. So we have about 50% of penetration. Some different sources you will have, okay, 40 something, 50 something. So in Nigeria it's about 50%. The most recent data from Statista is 50% of internet penetration in Nigeria, about 64 in South Africa. But what is impressive is that the number of hours of our users on the internet. So South Africa is the country with the longest time on the internet worldwide. So Chidi, I see your face now. I was like, I'm now living in South Africa. It's like, what are they doing online for 10 hours on average? Can you imagine 10 hours using internet? So I guess they are doing lots of things, obviously, not only shopping, but 10 hours. And Nigeria is the African country using the most social media. So yes, we still, this 50% penetration, but our users, they are really heavy users, which is a great opportunity for us for the all this, integration of online and offline. And again, we know that many retailers in Africa, they have, all these infrastructure issues, the transport, they are small, they don't feel like, can I really open an e-commerce shop, but it's not an issue, because the thing is, our consumers, they are using online for many things, not only to buy, but also to discover our brands, to discover the nearest shop. And that's why I'm coming back to that McKinsey study where, when we start looking for something, so we start online. So where is, I'm looking for shoes, I open my smartphone, shoes, or maybe the latest Nike or whatever, and they're gonna come, immediately you get all these shops and then the nearest shop, and then you start searching. So it's really important that the small retailers, the big ones, that you really have a very good digital and also physical strategy that is, integrated and homogeneous. So that is extremely important. So, and I'm going back a little bit more into e-commerce. This is obviously growing also. And we've seen that before the pandemic, we had about, e-commerce on, for instance, in South Africa, it was about 2% of the retail. Now it's already 4%. You would say it's still small, but it's growing very fast. And with big players, and here I think we have some guests today, but well, of course, a big player in South Africa is Takealot, which is kind of very similar to Jumia and Konga in the rest of Africa. That of course Nigeria and Ghana, and Takealot is it represents about 40% of our e-commerce in South Africa. But consumers are now, I mean, much more comfortable. And again, I was having this discussion with Chidi. You know, I'm half French, so I'm always very critical about things and always trying to find the negative side of the analysis. You know, I was saying, yeah, but because all these infrastructures and all these things, and you see all these initiatives, this, I mean, Nigerians, Ghanaians, so we are so, I mean, I'm saying we, I feel African. So, you know, we are so innovative. You always find these solutions to the things that are impossible. And you really find ways of getting the consumer improving their loyalty, getting ways of fighting these challenges we have. And yes, we have challenges. And I was looking at the there was this Mobile World Congress in Barcelona recently, and they were saying, yes, I mean, Africa is a great opportunity for e-commerce, the great opportunity for mobile, digital, and all this. And but they're still having difficulties with the payment, with the identity, the consumer identity or unique identity, as you call it. Because and many of our shoppers, they don't even have a credit card, but you guys have found a solution. I mean, you have these e-wallets, this payment with the telephone, and all these new solutions to pay that the consumers are feeling more and more comfortable. So for payments, obviously, we still have a big amount of payments that are done, cash on delivery, and that yes, it's something that is there. But it's being more and more replaced by other solutions like this Konga Pay, the e-wallets, telephone transfers, all these things that are kind of more and more secure. Like here, for instance, in South Africa, where I'm now currently shopping online, they immediately go. The bank is sending you a code through the telephone. So we are much more related to kind of one person, one mobile. So maybe we don't have a credit card, but the mobile is kind of our identity now. And this is a real trend. And yes, of course, we have other options, but it's kind of, even if we don't have a full unique identity, the telephone is giving you all these new options. And what another challenge and another option we've seen in terms of payments is that, in South Africa, also in Ghana, the modern retail is growing, and it's stronger than in Nigeria. And they're using these store cards. So, what they've noticed, I mean, at least the retailers, the online retailers in South Africa, they realize that the shopper has more store cards, like loyalty cards, right? So more store cards than credit cards or bank cards. So they are, giving that unique number to the store card, and they're using that store card for payments. Again, of course, you have to have some security systems like the PayPals, the PayStalls that we know are also developing very strongly in Nigeria and in Ghana. But this is giving you extra opportunities on this challenging of payments that we have in Africa. And obviously you have the transport and the infrastructure. Are we going to get, and this is a real concern. And when we talk to the shoppers, when we talk to the consumers, after the payment security, the second concern is when are we going to get the delivery, right? So, like people buy a lot of fashion, little toys and hobby stuff. So these are the major products that they are shopping online, more than groceries, which is, for me, it was surprising because coming from a European country, I thought the first, product that people would shop in these modern retails online in South Africa, for instance, would be groceries. No, I mean, the first one is fashion, and then followed by all these gadgets, and then, of course, electronics, right? So that's interesting that you see the growing of all these new transport facilities. Yes, I mean, what's important here is that one key element or the first way we connect with our retailers in Africa is WhatsApp, okay? So I know you know these things. I mean, I'm talking to experts here, but it's kind of, how can you talk with your retailer by WhatsApp? When I moved to Nigeria, I was shopping everything with WhatsApp. And at the beginning, I thought, is this possible? So you have, with your mobile, you connect with your traditional retailer. He knows you already because you're always WhatsApping him and you do your list and he's sending you, he has maybe his own transport. But today, this is, even in Europe, you have this Glovo that is also arriving. You probably know that in September, more or less, Glovo arrived to Nigeria. They are also in Uganda, Ghana, etc. And I'm not sure if you know what it is. It's a transport system where you have these riders like motorbikers, and you can immediately you say, okay, I'm shopping in this small little shop, and then you talk to this rider, and he's gonna pick it up. So these new solutions. And by the way, this is a Spanish company. I'm also Spanish, so this is fantastic startup. And you may have issues on the delivery. We know this is a big issue still in our cities because of traffic, etc. But you find all these new solutions, all these new options. And I was reading about Ghana and even the more traditional retailers like, I don't know if you know this little small, it's a kind of a smaller shop. It's called Dia, or it's called City Dia. And because this is also a trend, I mean, modern retail, it is developing in Ghana, in South Africa, but we are going to smaller neighborhood shops. I mean, that's something that was already a consequence of the pandemic. So we prefer to go to the neighborhood shop, etc. So the modern retailers, they study that, and they are opening and they are getting closer to the consumers, right? So they open smaller shops, they open shops that are closer to those consumers in areas maybe outside the city. So they are offering that transport, also that delivery. So it's kind of a combination of trends, obviously. Yeah? So between modern retail, or let's say more the traditional retail, which is extremely powerful in Africa. And we have to consider that our shoppers still are very traditional on the way they shop. But this e-commerce, or this, let's say, online retailing is now, integrated into these traditional ways, and let's say, becoming complementary. And so let me finish with this element, the fact that I was talking about the WhatsApp, the Facebook, which is of course a second major tool used in Africa, especially in Nigeria and in South Africa. So these tools, even if you don't have a website or an e-commerce website, are very important for you. So you really have to be present online. So you can promote, you can be like very active online with your catalogs, with your products, and make sure that your consumer is getting to know you through this online, to maybe visit your shop, or maybe ask for delivery. So it is about all this kind of phygital new way of living. We were talking about the phygital consumer some months ago. So, I mean, it's not like it has changed, or on the contrary, it's just intensifying. And the recent studies are just validating that. So I don't know if I can continue, or do we have to stop? Chidi, you're controlling my timing, because I can talk for hours. So please let me know if I have to stop. Can I continue?
You have just about a minute to wrap up the
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So just to wrap up, and as I was saying, so for instance, like a very modern retail shop in South Africa, Pick n Pay, which is kind of like a ShopRite, or so they of course they realize what is happening online, and they open this WhatsApp for their consumers. They open this WhatsApp, so you can connect with Pick n Pay, which is this big thing, and of course to ask questions. But they send you their recent catalog, which is updated, and that's very important. Whatever you have digitally, make sure that it's updated, that you really can connect with your consumer. They can see the latest products, but also the latest prices, because consumer, remember now, they first enter online and they compare, they look at prices. And if they are in the shop, the behavior is the same. So in the physical shop, they will also look online for the prices, similar products. So it's really this integration of the two tools, or the two worlds, I would say better. Thank you. I can continue later if you want, no problem.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, for those insights coming from the South African perspective. It's interesting to know all of these things going on, and I'm sure that our audience can begin to take notes on where the opportunities are with respect to the future of retail in Africa. So the next session really will be taking off again from the back of where Vanessa stopped. We'll be getting some insights on consumer trends from our speaker today, Angela Ambito. Angela Ambito is the founder of InfoTrack Research and Consulting, and she's had a lot of experience when it comes to strategic management and Marketing Society of Africa, where she's a council member. In the last 25 years or so, Angela has been on the mission to help entrepreneurs and corporate executives, as well as policymakers and even governments across the continent of Africa on issues around successful market entry strategies and public health campaigns, etc. A passion for business and entrepreneurship was ignited really when she was studying MBA. Now, as a company, InfoTrack has footprints across 45 countries with offices in Nigeria and Kenya and across the sub-Saharan African region. Our favorite quote is that difficult roads, if well understood, often lead to the most beautiful destinations. It's our pleasure, Angela, to have you on board this morning, and it's over to you. If you can hear me, kindly would like to hear your perspective with respect to consumer trends in East Africa. Thank you very much, Vanessa. And Angela, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning from Nairobi. I'm glad to be here. As mentioned in the introduction, I'm generally a number cruncher, so you will forgive me if I use a lot of percentages and statistics to really, give you a feel of what the retail sector is, more specifically in Kenya, which is indeed the largest economy in Eastern Africa. And I will start off with just by looking at my phone today and telling you, what I am receiving from the various retailers in terms of messages on their offers, on what is available to me. I start off this morning with a message from Quickmart, which is one of our largest, supermarket chains. It's growing very fast, and it's giving me, a flash sale, message on all its stores today, and saying you can buy these things at, a reduced price, and I can certainly do so online, whether I use, WhatsApp. I click on the link and just, go onto their catalog, or that I can actually use a USSD code. But essentially, all retail outlets, especially over the weekend in Kenya, will be sending you messages from Friday with all their offers, and trying to make it extremely simple for the retail, for the consumer to purchase whatever is available. So this perhaps starts to give you a sense of where we are moving in terms of the retail trade in this country, and how important e-commerce has become. 50 million is our population. Half of that population is youthful. Our rural to urban, ratio is 60 for rural and 40 for urban. Our internet penetration currently is about 42%. Our mobile penetration is 82%. Of that, 50% use smartphones. And just like Vanessa mentioned, Kenyans spend an average of about 3 hours daily online. Indeed, we are very, active online. And, that then I think just gives you a general perspective of how, internet is, integrated, and e-commerce can tap onto, the internet infrastructure that we have in the country. Our e-commerce ecosystem is relatively vibrant, and it has been, touted that our, growth trajectory is going to be very positive. Indeed, I think in 2019, 2020, it was estimated that about a quarter of all internet users in the country used e-commerce regularly. And of course, this was boosted by COVID. It is felt that during the COVID period and the period after, which is up to current, has actually increased from that 25% internet, usage to about, 35 to 40%. Like I mentioned, forgive me, I'm a number cruncher, so I will be hitting you with a lot of numbers. Adoption of, our digital e-commerce blueprint framework by government has stated that, our e-commerce sector will reach approximately $2 billion by 2024. Who are the main internet, who are the main, e-commerce users? It wouldn't be surprising to you, obviously, that because, we have such a large population under 35, which is youth, majority of the users of, e-commerce are indeed our youthful population. And we see that, of the youth, about 50% have indicated in studies that we recently did, having used or made an online purchase. I listened to Vanessa, and just like she mentioned, the main online purchases by various consumers, of course, primarily the youth, are first and foremost clothing and fashion items, followed by household goods, and then electronics, and then fourth comes, fruits and vegetables that, one would purchase. Most of these are done using mobile apps. 63% of, consumers that we have spoken to said they bought their, used their e-commerce through mobile apps. USSD is also used, but not as popular as, what you'd have with, the mobile apps that are available to smartphones. And indeed, the usage of these apps is becoming, quite dynamic. In terms of the whole, retail chain, what we have seen happening is, of course, there's a lot of marketing and purchasing being done using all these platforms. And then there's integration of the logistics. So you have the first phase, which is really, how you integrate and how consumers deal with the various retailers through various platforms, some of them direct. So you have the bigger retail outlets, Carrefour, all our supermarket chains having their own platforms. But you also have, the various e-commerce platforms integrating these retail outlets within their own, interfaces. So what am I saying? You can have Carrefour and you can have the equivalent of ShopRite. So we have Quickmart, you can have Naivas, all our supermarkets having their own platforms, but you also have Uber, you have Glovo, you have Bolt, and all these other e-commerce, platforms integrating the Carrefour, interfaces within their own, platforms. So it means that you can either purchase directly from the supermarket online, or you can also purchase, or whichever retailer it is, or you can actually do so through Uber. And many people take advantages of all the offers that are currently available, 50% off, especially on the weekends and month ends, 30% off, and whatever kind of, incentives they're providing to the retailer. Once that has happened, then there is the logistics. And the logistics, right now is being done primarily in Kenya. One of the most vibrant sectors is being driven by what we in our country call the border riders, or the motorcycle, riders. These are also, being managed by large, kind of like companies like Glovo, but you also have individual riders, and many consumers have a relationship with an individual rider who, would perhaps be called upon, and that rider would then go and collect whatever items you have purchased from whatever retail store. So if you, for instance, today, this morning, if I decided that I wanted to purchase all my items from Carrefour, I would do so through their interface, and then call my rider who's probably just across the road, and send that rider, and they would go and pick up my items. You also have those riders now being used more and more, especially for the smaller kind of purchases. You would send them your list, and they would go out and purchase those items for you. Now, once the logistics is done with, then in this country, I presume many of you have heard about M-Pesa, which is a payment platform. It is extremely, vibrant and dynamic and big. And majority of consumers, almost 70%, would use M-Pesa to, purchase their items. The average cost in terms of what we have seen from various studies in terms of purchases from e-commerce is normally, between $10 to anything that ranges between $50 to $100. That is the average amount that people spend on e-commerce. And what do we pay these logistic companies when they actually deliver? That payment is done directly by the consumer to the logistic company, and that ranges between $1 to $5. So in a nutshell, if we look at our country, what we're seeing, and I'm hoping I'm not overriding my time, is that we have a very vibrant e-commerce sector as we speak, but we also have a very, vibrant offline retail sector. 25% of our retail trade is right now moving towards e-commerce. We see that with COVID, this has actually increased to about 30 to 40%. Our market in terms of retail, is perceived to, grow to about, in terms of e-commerce, to grow to about $2 billion US dollars by, in the next 2 years. And the youth would indeed, our youthful population will indeed be, driving our e-commerce ecosystem greatly in the coming years. To close off, I give you another example, which is really, the way I actually do my shopping vis-a-vis the way my 16-year-old, is not 16, is turning 18 in a couple of weeks, does his shopping. Even during COVID, I would traditionally buy all my perishables physically, even during COVID, because I wanted to see my meats, I wanted to see my vegetables, smell them, et cetera, et cetera. But when it came to specific things, especially my pharmaceutical items, if I needed medicine, etc., I felt very comfortable. Just, getting online. We have a very large platform as well called My Dawa here, where you just go online and it will link you to various, pharmaceutical pharmacies across the country, and you can purchase whatever you want. Foods, in terms of fast food and food from restaurants, gourmet foods, I would buy fast food online, but would not be too inclined to buy my gourmet foods online. My son, on the other hand, only two or 3 weeks ago, spent about, I think, $500 buying items online from various parts of the globe, in Europe, etc., and then got a logistics company that he linked up with online as well to gather all those things and deliver them to him here. I was shocked because he had the trust and he knew that I want this clothing item, I've looked at it, it will look good on me, etc., etc., and he was able to purchase items worth almost $500. I say this with emotion because I had to pay for it. I would not do that, but I do see now, and to reinforce that most of our youthful population have been inculcated and cultured to trust what is going on the internet, because indeed, depending on the kind of retailer that you use, there has been that relationship of trust, that they can actually buy and purchase whatever they want. They will purchase computers online. They will purchase so electronics, that is, and they will purchase even their perishables online. I know a young person in my office who said to me the other day, "Why do you still waste your time going to the supermarket?" And I said, because I need to see my groceries, etc., before I purchase them. And this young lady said to me, "I haven't been to a retail outlet in the last 3 years, since COVID." So the effects of COVID and the pandemic and the way it, resulted in this paradigm shift is something that cannot be ignored. And whilst those of us in the 50+ age bracket will still be walking to retail outlets, my belief is, especially for this part of the continent, a lot of our consumers will increasingly be purchasing items online and using e-commerce, because they already even before COVID had started to do so, and during COVID most of them just decided to use e-commerce for almost everything that they purchase. What does this mean for the retailers? Indeed, like Vanessa mentioned, most of our retailers will have to in themselves inculcate that same kind of behavior and same kind of thinking in the way they design their retail mix. And it is not just for the large retailers. It's not just for the supermarkets and the large dukas and the convenience stores. We see here that even with our small retailers, the kiosks and the small dukas, what they have done is they have that relationship, they have bolstered the relationship they had with the consumer. And I'm talking about the kiosk right next door to me. And what happens is, indeed, through WhatsApp, a lot of them are having communication with their customers, also, saying what is available, what has come through their shops and their dukas. And then they will, have the purchases done online. And the rider that I was talking about, who has become indispensable in this country, everybody has a rider that they use. Everybody has a border man number that they have. And what happens is, once you have actually interacted with your kiosk owner, then you call your rider and the rider will go and pick up your items. These are the changes in the dynamics in terms of the retail trade. And indeed, it is across the board from, the very large retailers all the way down to the kiosk owner. Thank you very much. I hope that gives you a feel of what's happening in this part of the continent.
Thank you so much, Angela. Fantastic stuff. Lots of data as well. Lots of insights coming through from your end on what's going on with respect to the consumer trends in East Africa. And the interesting thing really is that this whole thing is just getting started, and it's going to continue growing in that trajectory, at least for the next few years coming. So those of us playing in that space can begin to position ourselves to make the most of all of the information we're receiving today. So if you're just joining us, it's still the Africa Retail Academy webinar. We're having our virtual conference with the discussion really is around the integration of online and offline retail channels. And we've had sessions from Vanessa and Angela taking us through the recent trends from South Africa, bringing us key insights from East Africa as well. Thank you, Vanessa and Angela, for your time. Lots of questions. I think we see a couple of questions already dropping in the chat box. We will return to that shortly, but because of our time, we will need to move on to the next segment of this particular program, and which is basically a panel discussion that we're going to be having. We have fantastic faculties to run us through this session today. The first on our list, of course, is Dave Omorede. He has a lot of experience playing in this space. Dave is in charge of VP Technology Operations and Supply Chain. He'll be bringing us insights as well during the course of this conversation. The second on our list today is Samuel Eje. Samuel Eje is the founder of the Grocery Bazaar, and by discipline, he's a petroleum engineer. And since then, he has morphed into the retail space and doing fantastic for himself and his company out there. And we'll be hearing much from him later in the course of the conversations. Of course, we also have this morning the opportunity to hear from Brian Makwaba from South Africa. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of Valuka Platform, a multi-award-winning e-commerce and fintech platform that supports the trading ecosystem within the informal sector. It's great to have you all in the house. Of course, we have Priscilla Muhu, who is the general manager of Glovo Kenya in Kenya, and Priscilla is passionate about solving Africa problems using technology and innovation. She's constantly challenging status quo and identifying ways to create value for all stakeholders across board. She has over 14 years of experience in business development and marketing, 9 of which comes from the tech world. So we have the privilege to tap into that wealth of experience as well this morning. And then last but not the least, on the list of our faculty this morning is Ismail Badije, who is the founder and CEO of Innovax Global Health Gambia. So it's a pleasure to have all these fantastic speakers in the house to walk us through the conversations this morning, but I won't be doing the moderation for this session. Mr. Chidi Okoro, the alternate academic director for the Africa Retail Academy, is on ground with over 30 years of experience across several sectors in Nigeria to take us through the conversations this morning. So it's my pleasure once again to welcome us to this session. And Mr. Chidi, if you can hear me, it's over to you now. Thank you. See you in a bit.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adedayo. Thank you very much, Vanessa, Angela. I think that opens up to the conversation we're going to have with practitioners and industry. We do have a good array, quite diverse. I think you mentioned them already. Just a few comments. We'll have 60 minutes to have this conversation with them. They'll be sharing perspectives, how they are, how they are riding the wave, the opportunity, and what they see coming on in the future. So it'll be a very simple conversation. Participants can also put their questions in the chat box. They could find time to take a few. I think what's coming through from a conversation is I think it's a new world for shoppers channel. It's a totally new world. And why do we talk about retail? Why do we have to keep talking about retail? We know that in most of the countries we'll talk about in Africa, retail probably employs directly, indirectly 30% of a population. In some, it's even more. Retail is everything. And I think retail goes more. It goes beyond today with the digital world. The retail is now going beyond just going to buy groceries or going to buy your beauty care products. It's now pushing strongly into healthcare. Gadgets are actually leading the way, like you said. In terms of contribution to GDP, retail is between 8 to 16% of GDP to countries in Africa. In places like Nigeria, it's actually about 16. South Africa, about the same. Kenya, it gets up to 8%. Ghana goes even a bit higher. So it's interesting to be talking about that. Just to say that, that said, Africa retail is still traditional in terms of a format. Traditional still predominant across Africa, and that includes offline and online. I think Vanessa mentioned how we engage in Africa. There's a bit of a Africanization of retail happening. We're using WhatsApp to push this. And I've seen that I get involved with a couple of retailers, and they say they get more chats, more engagement via WhatsApp than even the platform they have set, which is interesting. That's the way we Africanize it. And many things are driving this evolution now, like the panelists will share with us. The last 5 years, online has been gaining traction. I think COVID did open a bit more doors for that. Growing over 50% online, actually, in some countries more, and investments are coming. So this session will discuss this development, online, offline, with a view to get perspectives on how the players, the guys in the industry like we have, the panelists we have, are playing across this. So we're going to get the questions across. I think we're going to start off with Dave. I mean, Dave, you've been big in the online space, and I'm sure you're looking at the offline and wondering, what should I be doing? So Dave, let's understand, how are players in the online space looking at the opportunity, from online to offline and integration that we're seeing. How are you seeing that as a player, and how are players in your own space viewing this? Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you very much for having me, Chidi.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I really think that there's a lot of opportunity in the offline space, as we've seen. Konga started off as a purely online business, and since 2018, after our merger with a principal player in the industry, Udala, what we've seen is that there's a lot of opportunities open in the offline retail space. For a start, we had expanded pan-Nigeria to about 32 stores. And what we've continued to see is that where customers who always had that fear of going online, they couldn't have the comfort in getting to have that online experience, they chose to reach us via the channel of the stores, right? And we've also seen that there is some form of cross interaction between both channels, the online channel and the offline channel. As of today, there's actually a study that says that there are different buckets of consumers. There are the consumers who do their shopping online only. There are consumers who do their shopping offline only. And about 73% of these consumers do their shopping online and offline. So what that tells us is that there is that real opportunity for the omni-channel. And everything that we've tried to do is to build an experience around this opportunity. Some of the things that we've tried to do is that when you look at the experience at the retail end, the store end, right? For most of the time, the way they would operate, is it largely feels point of sale, there's some thought process that it's a bit manual, but what we've tried to introduce is to use technology to enhance the user experience in these places. A customer typically gets into our offline retail shop today. The customer is able to have access to the wide array of products that we have online. You're able to buy what is physically available. You also have access to the products that we have online. And what that experience is helping us see is that there's really a large opportunity for offline. I'd also like to say that overall, we've seen a leap in our revenues, right? Offline contributes a significant percentage of our total bucket of turnover. And at the end of the day, what we've seen is that the customers want to be able to touch, the customers want to be able to feel, they want a place to cry to, you know. Occasionally, we also observe that where there is a complaint, right? I've bought an item from your online space. The first thought that comes to the mind of the buyer is to figure out where is the store that I recently saw where Konga exists, right? So they're walking into the store. They don't really care if that person has an idea of what had happened previously, but there's this interaction, there's this connect between the consumer and the brand. And what we've seen that is helping to correct is the problem of trust that generally it characterizes e-commerce, right? I think we've also seen that the experience offline when it comes to the comfort of customers, NPS tells us that we are doing better offline than what we do online. And it all comes back to the factor of trust, right? People, when they get into the store, they're able to see what they are buying. Where they're not able to see what they are buying and they're buying from the area of products that we have online, they always have somebody who they're able to get back to where they run into any form of challenge. So I think generally there's been some comfort that the omni-channel approach has brought, even though the traditional retail has been is as old as human. This is a channel that we are just trying to build and get people confidence in. And I believe that as time goes on, this opportunity will continue to build products that would identify and enable the experience of consumers.
Thank you very much, Dave. Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. So you see integration even deepening further. That's the way you're seeing the future emerging. So we'll come to Smile. I mean, on health. I mean, we've spoken a couple of times of Smile on the health side, you know, and what you're saying, you're also trying to retail healthcare services as Smile. So let's understand how you're seeing this integration happening. And people can definitely walk into your store to see the pharmacist or they see the doctor. But what you're saying, you're trying to digitize the entire transaction. In that way, you can increase access. So Smile, what do you see? How do you see this integration playing out in the healthcare space generally?
Thank you, Chidi, and good morning to you guys. I get so excited when we talk about what people call the digital revolution, but I beg to differ when it comes to it being called a digital revolution. I think there's a choice revolution that's happening around the world where consumers are now choosing how they want their retail experience to be. And it's leaving the entire ecosystem, not only in Africa, but entire world, to either adapt or die, right? Because I think a lot of business models would not exist 10 years from now, especially as Vanessa was mentioning, the young population, where the word agency means so much to young people around the world. And when you come to healthcare, how the world has interacted with healthcare for generations, most people never had the agency to choose how to define wellness. So we've conflated these two ideas between what health means and what wellness means, to a point where even from a retail standpoint, people will always tell you, well, healthcare is expensive. Africans can't afford it. Well, I beg to differ. I think wellness is democratic if individuals like Vanessa have the agency to go on their mobile phone, go on an online platform, purchase something that also traditionally in an African setting could be cause stigma if they walk in and see Mr. Chidi, the pharmacist, who gives them a side eye like, why are you buying this young girl or young man? There's power in now what technology is doing where it's changing the way healthcare is interacting with consumers to a point where going digital from a retail standpoint, it's almost inevitable. And most of the times, especially when it comes to technology, you hear a lot of companies will use the buzzword, I'm a tech-enabled company. Most of the times I'm like, what does that even mean in 2022? That's like a human telling you, I'm a human who needs oxygen to breathe. Because healthcare and technology is a marriage that you cannot separate anymore. And at the core of it is why retail is not only changing the business models in sophisticated markets like the US, where the CVS of the world are closing down, the Walgreens of the world, which I used to work from Walgreens, are closing down. And all of a sudden there's an uptick like players with Amazon who are now really realizing that patients are only loyal to their time. And any experience, especially from a health, that gives them back their time and provides them the comfort of receiving healthcare wherever is most convenient, that's the true value proposition. And I think that's what Innovarex Global Health saw in the US. But we figured, wait, Africa, the healthcare retail opportunity is a $250 billion industry by 2030. So why would you not take technology and the retail experience and start it elsewhere when you could have the entire ecosystem where I'm surprised when I hear South Africa is 65, when it cut 65% of internet adoption, Gambia is 18, right? So we have a long way to go. But at the same time, I think democratizing access to healthcare is the biggest opportunity with healthcare retail. And I think the ecosystems are going to evolve because what's happening, and you're seeing it in a lot of sophisticated markets where the healthcare industry is being disrupted because now it's more valuable to have an agile, vertically integrated health ecosystem where you could commercialize retail on the web than building a new hospital. So it's not only disrupting traditional healthcare, it's disrupting real estate. Because why pay expensive real estate in a fancy corner in the neighborhood when half of the shoppers just want to get their prescription medications at home at 7 p.m. because all the kids are at bed at that point. So the consumer psychology, I think, is so critical. And with healthcare, I think that's where you're going to see the revolution that's already began. So companies like us just need to position ourselves to leave the agency in consumers from a retail standpoint and allow them to define what health and wellness means to them. And I think companies like MyDawa, that's why they're pushing along. Companies like Innovarex, that's why we exist. So I think it's a beautiful moment in time to just capture the opportunity on the continent.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Ismail. So you see a lot of opportunity coming. And you speak about choice revolution. I love that. You know, we always talk about, you know, tech enabling things, but you're saying no, it's about having more choices. That's what this certainly provides here. We're going to speak to, we'll come back to you on, you know, where is this headed? Because we don't know where this is headed. There's still so much real estate being poured out, but we're going to go to Brian right now. Brian runs an e-commerce company, also within fintech, you know, also plays in fintech. And we know that fintech seems to be enabling a lot of this. Brian, are you there? Brian?
Yes, good morning.
You know, Brian seemed to sit, you know, at the front end of this, you know, playing e-commerce, fintech, big enabler in this whole game. So what's really going on in South Africa where you play a significant role in the space?
Okay.
Are the shoppers in there, are you seeing a convergence, integration? What are you seeing, or divergence?
So we're actually seeing a convergence because what has happened, or what COVID has given as a boost to our online type platform, is that because we've had COVID and we've had the lockdowns where people could not go to the shops. Now we've seen a bigger adoption of our platform, where traditionally informal business owners would want to go and feel and touch the goods before they buy them. Now they're now going onto platforms like ours and are able to make purchases, and they're then able to sell those goods also to their consumers, also using online platforms like ours. And I think the beauty of this is that it's helped us to be able to build and track their purchases. And then that's where the fintech space comes in, because then we're building profiles for people that usually would not have had these profiles because they're usually cash businesses. And then we are able to bring them into the tech or the fintech ecosystem and provide them with things like credits and provide them with other things that they traditionally wouldn't have gotten. So we've run our platform for a couple of years, and adoption spiked only during the time when COVID and we had hard lockdowns, when people couldn't leave their houses to go and purchase their essential goods. And now it's just a matter of maintaining that type of momentum.
Good. Thanks a lot, Brian. Yeah, I think you play on the front end. We're going to speak to Sam now. Sam traditionally is offline, but I'm sure Sam is thinking about a couple of things that a couple of other projects is involved in. Sam, so how is this online evolution, online emergence, or choice revolution, as Ismail puts it? How is this playing out in the FMCG retail space, especially as it relates to the brick and mortar model? Sam, are you there?
Yeah, sure, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I've heard what most people said, and it's exciting, right? It's exciting that the online space is sort of finally growing. A few years ago, when I started Grocery Bazaar, online space was virtually nothing. I mean, it's grown significantly over the past few days. COVID has generally made this thing accelerated the growth significantly. That said, one of the challenges we've always looked at when we look at it from my business, when we sat down and looked at these numbers, has always been about unit economics, especially with food items. So you can think about delivering water. If I have to deliver a pack of water to you, it makes no sense economically. It's not a business, frankly. Now, the idea of fulfillment, so the way I've always thought about this is simple. There's a brick and mortar store, there's an online store. Now, there must be some sort of integration of some sort, right? For it to make it viable. If you have isolated, single, standalone virtual store for especially FMCG food items in particular, the margins are just too thin for it to actually be profitable at this stage. Well, at this stage, hopefully, if the fulfillment cost over time decreases, then maybe that becomes more viable. What we've done, we've tried to look at this in several ways. Today, if you, just like Vanessa mentioned, if you can send us WhatsApp and we'll deliver to you. We do that. We do all those sort of things, all those quasi this thing. But the numbers are not significant, number one. And number two, most people just can't bear the cost of actually buying water and pay for transport, because frankly, the cost of buying the water and the cost of transport is the same cost. 1,000 naira for delivery. Makes no sense. That's not a viable option. So we need to find options, models that actually work for our sort of, for FMCG food in particular. That's something to look at carefully. I've always worried about unit economics, frankly. That's something I worry about. What we're doing today is that we're looking at models. We're looking across the platform to look at models that make sense, that we can actually, that makes sense for us as a business to actually try and implement. Today, there are two different models, frankly, where you go direct to retail, you go direct to the consumer, or there are people who are trying to do something a little bit different, which to increase the basic unit of the basket size a consumer buys. Many of them are now choosing to actually not deal with the consumer directly, but deal with the retailer in between. So that's the second model. That model seems to be what is being adopted for most developing countries. That's in Indonesia, now is in India. That's something that most people are looking at carefully. I think even in Nigeria is becoming more common as well. For that model, the unit economics might work. Direct to consumer, it might be a little bit tricky. And I think so it's a balancing act, and it's something that we're looking at as a business at this point in time, because we recognize that we need to merge our brick and mortar store with an online version, but think about it a little bit more going forward and thinking, oh, you know what? We need to think about becoming more and more of an online store than a brick and mortar store, because that's where the future lies. So that's where.
Yeah, fantastic. That's interesting. I mean, the mention of unit economics is really interesting. I didn't dare
just realize that
sorry. Who is that? Someone is okay. Good. So let's come back to Dave. Dave, I mean, predominantly your online store. You know, you are an online retailer. That's what you are. But you seem to be driving the convergence even more aggressively. Are you seeing a situation where over the next 5-10 years, you will have online starting to become 95% of this game in overall retailing? What do you see, Dave?
I do think that it would take some time. It would take some time because of some of the points that Sam just stated, right? Unit economics, you are talking about having infrastructure in logistics, infrastructure in payment available, right? These are all of the enablers that would actually help that form of retail continue to get traction. I also think that internet availability is also going to play a major role, right? As the unit cost for accessing the internet continues to dip, you would continue to see innovation around what are the models that will work. I do believe very strongly that internet purchase, online buying is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. But I think that there are a lot of adaptations that would have to happen, right? The problem that we have is how do we ensure that it's still a problem that the omni-channel is yet to address, right? How do we ensure that what it takes you to get the product from an online shop to the customer and what it takes the customer to walk in is near same experience, near same price, right? The extra layer that comes with online is usually that shipping cost, is usually that payment, right? So where innovations come around that, we would have been seen to solve the problem and help adaptation of that particular channel. So overall, what I think is that there's no going back, that will continue to eat into the retail offline segment. What just needs to happen is players need to understand that you want to drive a sustainable business. Your customers want to be able to reach out to you. It really doesn't matter what channel they want. You must be available at all of the different channels. If there's some traction on WhatsApp, you should be available on WhatsApp. If there's some traction on Instagram, you should be there. If there's some traction on Facebook, you should be there. So positioning has a lot to do with what the future will look like, because there's some, for the technology bit of things that drives online, there's some scaling that is required, right? It is only at the point where we scale that you're able to attend to the problem of unit economics. And what I can say for certain is that the future is in the omni-channel approach, which doesn't look at the channels in segments. It just looks at the entirety of the bucket. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, so you're seeing a future where omnichannel will continue to evolve quite strongly. So we are going to take a few seconds out now to I think the LBS hosts here there. Ismail will come back to you to discuss issues of regulation and how your model, your retail healthcare model, is helping change Africa for good in terms of healthiness. So let's if LBS hosts you're there, please go ahead for a few seconds. I think the LBS hosts you're there. Ismail will come back to you to discuss issues of regulation and how your model, your retail healthcare model, is helping change Africa for good in terms of healthiness. So let's if LBS hosts you're there, please go ahead for a few seconds. I think the LBS hosts you're there. Ismail will come back to you to discuss issues of regulation and how your model, your retail healthcare model. Are you ready to play that? Hello? Is that on? Okay, so we'll go ahead, just get ready. So Ismail, I mean, you have an interesting model on primary healthcare. That's basically what you provide. So how does the online platform that you have, help democratize access to healthcare? Number one. Number two, someone was asking, I think it's Anthony Ubago asking, how about the regulatory side? How is
I think that's an excellent question, Chidi. And I think at the root of the innovation has to be a convergence of what is now in terms of players who've also had a significant stronghold on relationships, especially when it comes to healthcare. From even a retail pharmacy standpoint, it's rooted on how many relationships have you established in the community. So these are the local players who've invested over the years in building a customer base that are more face-to-face. Now, the technology, the convergence, when the technology comes in, what it does, it just removes bottlenecks in the system where now, going back to choice, which customer are you serving? A grandmother who lives in the neighborhood may still value coming to the pharmacy to talk to the nurse or the pharmacist about, what their child ate for breakfast yesterday. That's a valuable part of the business where a 18-year-old would just want some deodorant and doesn't want to speak to anybody, who just goes onto a health platform. So I think there's a merger between the two where I think you leverage the technology of today and tomorrow with established players. And going back to what Sam says, where there's an evolution of the business models where you cater and meet customers where they are. And I think from a healthcare standpoint, this is what that does. I think the problem with a lot of health systems in Africa is we take emergency care and define it as what healthcare is. When typically, if we're a young population, which Africa is, majority of Africans are young, meaning they just need access to preventative care. Do you have somewhere that you could run into and just check your blood pressure, your blood sugar? If you have diabetes or hypertension, the most important element of your therapy is, can you get quality medication at your doorstep or bedside every single day to keep you outside the hospital? So integration of technology, integration of last mile delivery, leveraging established, centers, brick and mortars, just eases the burden on the hospitals. So I tell people, Africa doesn't need more hospital beds. Africa needs more brick and mortars in communities that could provide primary care that keeps people outside of the hospital, which at the root of it comes to the regulation part. How do you regulate that? I could spend an hour talking about all the challenges when it comes to regulating healthcare in Africa, issues with quality of medication. But I think it's more like, instead of regulating who's selling the product, I think a lot of the regulation should start with who's able to even put the product on the market. And I think a lot of systems who have succeeded in a more trustworthy ecosystem is this tighter control at the top of the supply chain, meaning it's harder for one, let's say, medication that's not quality or one testing equipment that's not quality to enter the ecosystem, where when consumers are engaging with a product or service, quality is the last thing on their mind. So I think so much of the regulation will have to be with disentangling conflicts of interest in a lot of systems. But healthcare is like restaurants. I think the market has a way of policing the ecosystem, meaning the moment a company that has a brand and your brand is everything that you could rely on, the moment there's an infiltration of adulterated medication or a mishap in quality, like a restaurant that causes a food poisoning outbreak, you would lose customers. And it's harder to trust customers now because so much of the relationship is built on trust, where I think most companies that want to have long-term stay would almost tighten the quality measures independent of the regulation that happens. Because I think markets could be very unforgiving to, broken trust when it comes to consumers.
Very good. Thanks a lot. I think you're speaking more to facilitation outside of control and regulation. That's where you think you should be going, because that's one way Africa can drive access to healthcare. So we'll come to Sam before we come back to Brian. Sam, you mentioned, the unit economics. That's a limiting factor. And Africa's GDP per capita typically will stay around $1,000, $1,200. we're not going to be able to buy 200 packs of water. We will not do that. We're not going to buy, $200 chocolates. So do you think in the near future, someone can design a model that cracks the issue with unit economics in any way?
Well, I think, so first of all, right, unit economics is a problem right now. But, like anything technology related, so think about it, a number of factors are driving this trend, and they are unlikely to actually reverse themselves anytime soon. Technology is changing, so the cost of internet access, all those costs, they will keep decreasing over time. That's for sure. Things like, demographics. Africa is a young population. Most of these young kids, frankly, they sleep on their phone. They use technology. They are permanently on the phone, right? So you have no choice. All those things are, most of these things have been mentioned here. I think peculiar to Nigeria will also be things like traffic situation in places like Lagos. Also things like security. People, just physical security, just to stay alive, right? Some of those things are part of what's going to drive this trend. I doubt if we're going to reverse it in that sense of it, irrespective of unit economics. But I think what's going to happen over time is you're going to find models. I don't know if there's one right now that I've seen that actually meets these things completely. But I think over time, as the cost of fulfillment, especially with delivery, with payments, with cost of internet, as those costs sort of decreases over time. I can remember a few years ago when all this started, the cost of delivery was extremely high. It was high. Today, that cost is relatively better. It's better today, and it's getting cheaper over time. It's getting better with time as well. The real problem is actually about balancing the cost of having a physical brick and mortar store in real estate and your cost of power in a place like Nigeria and all the costs that are associated with the physical brick and mortar store with that of actually fulfillment for an online store. Is that balancing act? The main advantage an online store always has is the ability for you to leverage. Your online store, once you have one and the model works, it can go anywhere. It doesn't need to actually, there are no limits. For the brick and mortar store, unfortunately, it's limited to that brick and mortar store for the particular location. My view is that right now, I haven't seen a model that works completely yet. We ourselves, we are in the business. We're trying to look for a model that works, right? So we don't have to beat it to the game as well. So we're out there trying to look at what makes sense for us. For now, I think it's going to be a model that actually basically combines both end of it. If for us, we already have a brick and mortar store. So what we're trying to do is actually bring an online channel, but find a way that makes it viable in terms of unit economics for us. We are right now, as I speak to you, we're doing that. We're trying to find all sorts of ways to get around it. We already sell online, not online directly, but quasi online. We have people send us WhatsApp messages. We deliver all sort of things. The numbers sometimes don't work very well, but we can't also not be present. We have to be present. We have to keep pushing and finding better ways, and we're developing something for ourselves. We're trying to look at what we can do about that. But I haven't seen a model that works exclusively yet at this point.
You're emphasizing continuing to provide choice for the shoppers, but you're looking around thinking, how do I crack this issue of a unit economics? Because the future could be different. So we're going to, Priscilla, you're welcome. We're going to come to Priscilla. It's a good point to actually come to you, because Jan was asking, why retailers in Kenya don't integrate with logistics fulfillment companies, providing a one-stop shop for customers. I think Glovo, your company, Glovo is a big facilitator of this connection, isn't that? So Priscilla, why are retailers in Kenya not integrating more with logistics companies, or are they doing that and we're not aware of that yet? Let's start from there, Priscilla.
Okay, thank you very much. And first of all, I'm sorry for being late. So my name is Priscilla. I'm the General Manager of Glovo in Kenya, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. To start with, right now, Carrefour and Naivas have their own platform, and at the same time, they are already present in Glovo. So Glovo customers can access Carrefour and Naivas on the platform. At the same time, they have an option of going directly to the website that Naivas has, and also Carrefour has an app. So in terms of, can you hear me?
Yes, clear.
Okay. So yes, so in terms of integrating with logistics, they are already doing that. And if I look at the percentage of orders coming from groceries on Glovo right now, we're at 35%. which is really high compared to other global markets. And the thing about, and the reason for this is because unlike Barcelona or European countries where you will find a convenience store 2 blocks away from you, in Kenya, for example, if you need to go to a retailer store, you have to get into your car, you have to go and park your car, pay for parking fees. And because we have large formats or hypermarkets, you have to really queue for a while before you get to pay. So the value of convenience in Kenya makes a lot of sense, or rather the value of delivery makes sense because of the convenience element of it. And you'll find that unlike European markets where because of the fact that they have stores next to their homes, they have to do the thing about 15 minutes delivery, quick delivery. But in Kenya, as long as you deliver it within an hour, it's very okay. Actually, it's a very good user experience. So to answer your question more precisely, yes, they are already integrating with the logistics partners. And right now we are in a negotiation with Naivas to provide them with an app, which is a white label solution, where the customer will order from the Naivas platform, but the platform is developed by Glovo, and we manage the logistics as well.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Priscilla. We'll come back to Brian, but please, I will encourage the panelists to check out the chat box. There's a couple of questions for you to take. Some very interesting ones. I mean, it's small. I think Sam somewhere there. If we look in there, you can see a couple of questions you have to respond to. While we'll come back to Brian. Brian, I'm sure there are a couple of constraints you face in the case of driving this integration. Obviously, they are there. I think Dave alluded to that. Sam alluded to quite a bit of that. So, Brian, what other constraints do you see coming through in that online space as we try to drive, because online space growing 50% higher year on year off a lower base, but do you see some other constraints in African markets that you play in?
So I think the biggest constraint is actually the payments. So a lot of who we deal with are informal businesses that actually get paid in cash. So if they are paid in cash, if they are going to order online, how are they then going to pay us on an online platform? So the offline online integration still needs to happen, but you can't run away from the offline because of the cash payment type thing. So unlike other African countries where mobile payments have picked up, in South Africa, mobile payments have not. We do have a very robust banking ecosystem, but if a customer is paying the retailer in cash, the retailer also then has to pay in cash, which means that then you still have to integrate with the offline. Now, when it comes back to delivery and the unique economics, what we've tried to do is that we've tried to essentially almost club orders for one area so that when we are making the deliveries, it's cheaper for the end consumer, because then you know that when you're going out to go make the deliveries, you're all making them in the same type of area, not just one delivery to one area, because then that's going to be quite expensive.
All right, so you're trying to crack it in some way. I think we'll come back to Dave briefly. Dave, on issues of trust and integrity, we'll have some comments on that as well. Trust and integrity. At what point do you think that we're going to cross that hurdle? Remember when we had ATMs come up, many people couldn't get near an ATM. Today is a way of life, isn't that? Even online transfer, online banking. I mean, many people said, no, I will never go there. At what point do you think is going to happen with e-commerce? Where people now, that issue of trust and integrity just vanish. And people know, I think William Yevinam actually alluded to that question. People just place the order, they know that things happen and they happen perfectly.
I do think that it's going to continue to be a journey. We would continue to look at what the average experience of the online shopper is and build products that meet these desires of theirs. In 2013, 2012, when a lot of these players started e-commerce in Nigeria, what we had at that time was no payment, just like my colleague in South Africa just gave us feedback, right? We didn't have any payment infrastructure that supported e-commerce. But today, you would agree with me that there are a lot of platforms that have powered payments, right? Powered payments to do retail, powered payment to do leisure, lifestyle needs, right? So what I think is that what actually enables payment in Nigeria is the first critical bit, which is trust, right? So when there is trust, people are able to take the risk. Because if you look at it today, the players that you know very popular in Nigeria for e-commerce could be Jumia and Konga, right? But you would be surprised to know that the major contender of these critical players are people outside Nigeria. Alibaba, Amazon, those are major competition. So how is it that the consumer in Nigeria is able to prepay on those channels, but when it comes to the one in his own client, he finds it very difficult committing to prepay? So I think the element there is that of trust, where we continue to strengthen our processes, where we continue to build confidence in the consumers. I think that eventually it would pick up, because what's happening is that barrier that has been created with the experience that they occasionally would have. It is not even true that the guys who play outside our climb, outside Africa, do not have these same challenges, but at scale, I think they've largely been able to inspire confidence in their consumers, and that's what we as players here, we've continued to try to do, and I think it's really a journey, and at some point we'll get there.
That happens. So Priscilla, we'll come back to you. I know Glovo is expanding its footprint across Africa. And you know, Africa Free Trade Agreement is coming. It's here. It's kicking off soon. I'd like to understand how a company like yours is looking at that. Would that facilitate your aspiration, or would it frustrate that in any way? How do you see that?
Okay, so currently Glovo is what we call an on-demand platform. On-demand meaning we deliver within less than an hour. So currently we are not involved in inter-country trade because it's a different business model. So we don't see it frustrating us, but it means that probably there's an opportunity for us to think about inter-country trade, given that we have experience when it comes to logistics. But at the moment, as the platform is, it's an on-demand platform, and everything you order is delivered within minutes. And also, as a customer, you're not able to see stores that are more than 5 kilometers away from you. So yeah, at the moment, we don't have that model, but it will definitely present an opportunity to consider it.
So yeah, Glovo, you geofence your suppliers.
Yes.
So you see shops within you. So Ismail, back to you again. Ismail, do you think you should be working with regulators to facilitate the process of regulation so that you can really crack the opportunity you see across Africa?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially, and it's interesting because anytime the word regulators come into play, people see it as a barrier to entry. I normally consider it a minimum standard to protect the consumers. And I think especially when technology integration is involved, I think you have to increase the bar at which anyone who wants to participate in the ecosystem must invest certain measures, checks and balances in their systems to protect the consumer, which still makes it evenly competitive. But I think part of it too, our regulators will also need a little bit of reprogramming in how they see the general ecosystem from a retail or digital standpoint, because even in terms of digital health emergence, a lot of countries still don't have any policy on digital health. A lot of countries don't have any policy on e-commerce when it comes to healthcare. So I think, how could the consumers be already at a place where our regulators haven't even had a conversation because their perspective is completely different? So I think that's going to be the interesting space, because I know countries like Ghana, for example, just launched an e-pharmacy, policy and framework that they're trying to use to almost guide a lot of their traditional brick and mortars with particular checks and balances to go online, knowing that that's where the economies are going. But I think working together is an absolute must. And I think that's where you give credence to people who are doing it well. So you use best practices. If there's a best practice in Kenya or best practice in Lagos, I think now is when Africa, instead of reinventing the wheel, see where it's working. And it's nothing wrong with copy pasting to leapfrog what could be years and years of deliberation, because once again, the consumer is not waiting. And I think it's important what, the gentleman from Congo mentioned, that Africans now have access to ecosystems outside of Africa. So our regulators could be in the position where they impede the growth while the consumer is going to choose sources outside of the continent, where now the money and the revenue is not cycling in the economy, but it's leaving right outside, which is the exact case for even healthcare. Africa loses more revenue from healthcare tourism when there's a lot of channels within the continent that could provide a lot of these care. So absolutely, it's a must.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, thank you. So you're speaking about adapting, learn and adapt. That's what you'd be saying to the regulator. I think that's about the right thing to do and say. Sam, just back to you. We have to start winding down now. Sam, if you look 10 years from now, online, offline, probably integrated, maybe, or not. It could diverge. It's possible. Anything is possible. What do you think will be offline contribution to retail generally in the FMCG sector that you play? 10 years from now, 15 years, what are you seeing? And what are the factors that will deliver what you're saying? Or impede?
Today, I wish I have the answer to that. I'll probably be a billionaire in dollars right now.
That's right.
So my view is simple. I think the trends are going to go in the direction where online sales will keep increasing, irrespective of all the cost, unit economics, whatever we're talking about, that trend is going to continue. It's not going to stop. I think any person with a brick and mortar store needs to start thinking about how to integrate them together. My view is that an integrated model will probably work better. Dave has talked about trust. One of the problems with trust for an online store is that there's no physical presence. If you have physical presence, you can actually demonstrate more trust. You can say, you know what, pick it up here. You can come and complain here. There's some sort of connection. So there's some sort of, you can leverage, if you have a brick and mortar store, the trust you build with customers to actually your online store as well, to actually combine that. I think that's something that works for someone like me. So ultimately, I personally my view is that in the next 10 years, we should actually have probably maybe 20-30% of our sales actually from the online channel. So it should be bigger and bigger presence. My view is it depends also on how the cost structure works out. If it rapidly changes, then of course that number could be significantly higher. But my view is that that's what's going to happen. Right now, I think the biggest problem I've always said is to get the right model, is to have a model that makes it work, especially for FMCG food. Look, most people buy clothes online these days. Most people buy shoes online. Most people buy electronics online. Most people buy, because of, guess what? It works. The unit cost of a phone, of an iPhone, is in thousands and thousands of naira. It just makes sense. You can deliver it easily. It's the transport cost, the fulfillment cost is so small a portion of what you actually buying that it makes business sense. When it goes to food, the cost increases significantly compared to actually, and that's where the problem is. So I've mentioned this before. There are two ways to think about this. You can actually say, you know what, no, I'm going to go to the mom and pop stores down the road and I'll deal with them. I'm not going to deal with the customers directly. Let the mom and pop store continue to deal with the customer, so the customer can see someone physically and go to them, which is a model. Or you can say, you know what, continue to do what Konga and Jimmy and everybody's trying to do, go direct to the customer. If you go direct to the customer, then you have all sorts of challenges to deal with, because unit economics becomes a big and significant problem for you to manage. My view is down the line, 10 years down the line, hopefully we'll have cracked it. We've got a better model. a business model that works, that can combine both channels, and then we'll see what happens. That's my take.
So 20, 30%, it could be 50. So we need to start taking position in that space. Yeah, got that. So Brian, you know, one of the comments people make, and I think Dave will also take this on. Brian, it's about the cost of acquisition. What it takes to acquire customer in the online store is significant, you know, for a lot of players, you know, especially at the early phase. It costs quite a bit in terms of marketing cost. How are players in your space cracking this? I mean, Dave, we'll come to you on that as well, because you played there. You have to point tons of dollars to pull customers onto the platform, and that does cost quite a bit of money. So, Brian, how are players in your space trying to manage this? It has implication to the P&L.
So it actually is a cost of trust, I think, because in trying to acquire this customer, you need to get to them at their level. So in our space, what we've done is that we've had to have agents on the ground that can go out and can essentially convince this customer that we can use this platform, and there's a trust factor to it. I think Dave mentioned it as well. When we started out, one of the biggest things that we got was before people could place an order on our platform, they wanted to come in and see us and see that you are there, and if I've got a problem, I can come here. I'm not going to call some type of number or send an email to someone and then someone is going to respond back in 3 to 5 days. Because if you're dealing with a customer who is the shop, who is a mom and pop shop, they're trying to sell, this is their livelihood. So they're not going to just trust the fact that they're going to get defective goods, and then they have to go through a whole process of actually trying to regain or get their money back or get the goods to be changed. So that is the cost of actually trust, to try and get the customer to, one, trust you, and then to change their buying behavior, which is quite cumbersome and very, very expensive if you don't have like the deep pockets to actually do it. So I think they would be, one, a customer for online, and there is a customer for like for offline as well. Those things are never going to change. There are people that make it that actually make an event out of going to a shop, so they still want that experience. And in trying to acquire that customer or change them to online is going to be very hard and very expensive.
So you're talking about targeting the right customer group and pulling them in online. Yeah, good. So Dave, I mean, you have played in this space, the online space. Customer acquisition costs are pretty high, especially at the early phase. Yeah, I know you can say you nail it off. You know, you can nail it off your P&L over time, but it's expensive, and the board could actually get worried at some point. So how are practitioners taking this, and how do you see this evolving over time?
Well, we've actually tried. It's a major one. We've tried to find creative ways of dropping this cost of acquisition. One of the ways that we've tried to do this is to we've got affiliates, right? Affiliates actually help you get to the market, have a network of buyers. We've also tried to see how we could improve retention rates, right? If you have more people on the platform, if you're able to retain the people who visit, you're also able to enable word of mouth through those people, right? We've also, in recent time, tried to integrate our verticals, have what I'll call a super app experience, right? There are different channels that we currently have built to leverage technology assets. So we recently have an integrated experience on the super app where if you want to interact with my payment service, if you want to interact with my e-commerce service, all of the different verticals that we have, we've got the super app experience, which reduces that cost of acquisition. But what I would say typically is that everybody has a role to play in the cost of acquisition for e-commerce customers. My friend Sam was just saying that we need to get to that point where it makes sense to go online to buy a grocery item. I think the OEMs have some roles to play there. What COVID brought was it made us realize that they could not continue to put all their efforts offline. They needed to do a lot more with supporting the conversation online. And one of the things that I think that could come from that or could be bettered from that is having a price structure that accommodates that shipping element online, right? You want to, you're selling to A and B, right? But you are aware that there's a constraint that exists with the online channel. So how do these guys factor in? I have interactions with people in the FMCGs, the PZs, the Unilever, and what have you. But I see that they are now paying closer and closer attention to the online space. They want to be present there. They are stakeholders. They would contribute immensely to helping us stabilize and make online more attractive for consumers, because what we are fighting with now is price. Consumers are price sensitive. If I know that I'll go to the Aboki close by and I get it for 10 naira, there has to be sufficient justification to talk about convenience going to my app, right? So when we're able to bridge that gap, I think America was able to win it with Amazon when they supported the infrastructure of their UPS, right? They have a delivery infrastructure. So what they did was they subsidized usually they're just like we have a postal service here, but I really don't know if that thing still exists. But what those guys have done is that they are running at a loss. Yes, they are running at a loss, but they are enabling a lot of SMEs to do business. And overall, the impact that they see is growth, traction, enabling interactions in their ecosystem. So these are what the few ways that I think customer acquisition costs can be positively impacted, and over time we eventually would see growth. And I also think lastly that I think there was a recent move by Google to get the subsea cable to Nigeria. What does that really mean? It means that the quality of internet would get better. It means that accessing the internet, I hear that it should be able to, it would impact retail cost by about 24%. I read. That's really very significant. And if you look at it, every time you are reducing the cost for internet, what you are doing is you are enabling, you are making it more attractive. And eventually the cost that I would have spent in going to tell somebody that I exist, naturally the person is able to find me, right? So that's how I'd like to summarize it. Thank you very much.
The lifetime, extracting the lifetime value of customer and also collaboration. So let's start winding now. Sam will take a question, then your final comment with that. Someone is speaking about, like Jumoke is speaking, Sam, about, how do you drive traffic to your online store successfully? You also can allude to how you do that to your offline store successfully, because both of them carry huge, significant costs. And then you make your final comment as we start to wind down.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, Dave was more the appropriate person to answer that question because he has an online store. Not be Dave and Brian, hopefully.
Right.
Look, we've always been a no-frills retailer. For us, we're a grocery business, so we are a no-frills retailer. So what that meant for us is that we want to make sure our cost is not significant. We've not really done significant type of marketing, and I'm sure the marketing budget for Dave and Brian will probably be something that I can't think about. Frankly, I can't even put that around my head. So, when you think about online stores, because that's what you spend the money on, as opposed to having the physical presence, you have to put most of the money into marketing. That's what it's about. The difference with that's very scalable, because once you get traction, it's possible you can run with that for a long period. It's different for a brick and mortar store because brick and mortar stores are not in themselves physically scalable. The store is there, it's physically present, that's it. It doesn't do anything beyond that. If you do it online and you do it very well and you create a brand that is very viable online and the model works, then frankly, you can even take it outside the country. You can do whatever you want to do. It could be anywhere, right? So that's the advantage of actually the model they run. And that's the reason why almost every brick-and-mortar store needs to have some sort of online presence, because it means you can actually extend yourself beyond the physical store itself.
Thank you very much. So we wind down. Ismail, your final comment quickly. I think we are running out of time. We have a few seconds. We'll go to Ismail, Brian, and then Priscilla, and then we round up this segment of the conversation.
No, thank you, Chidi. I think if one thing the pandemic forced the entire world to do is revisit our relationship with healthcare and consumption. So when it comes to inequality, when it comes to disparities in access based on where you live. And I think that's Africa's biggest opportunity that I'm excited about. So be it the Nigerian market, the Ghanaian market, just the entire continent, I think we are going to have a leapfrog moment in terms of how fast we could deliver healthcare in a more democratic way, better than the rest of the world, using technology and using platforms that exist. And that's what I'm excited about, because I think even at Innovarex now, every new market, it's going to be a convergence of people who've done it the traditional way and then finding a hybrid that creates the best of both worlds. So I think it's just an exciting time to be on the continent. So where a lot of problems exist, yes, seeing it as opportunities is a more, I guess, optimistic way of just kind of looking where it's going.
Thank you very much, Ismail. Brian, to you, your final comment, and then we will round up with Priscilla.
Okay. So I think that there's a big opportunity for online, and where we're going, given the boom that we've got in terms of technology, in terms of internet access, in terms of people having access to phones. But I still think that offline and online will actually still exist. There's different targeted customers for both of them. And I think that it's very exciting because the younger generation is more used to online, but I think offline is still here to stay.
Brilliant. Thank you. Priscilla, finally, we might have to take one question from one of the attendees. We'll see a couple of hands up, but one question. So can we select that person, get that person ready? But Priscilla, your final comment, please.
Okay, so I think when it comes to e-commerce in Africa, we have barely scratched the surface. We're just starting. And I would like to make a comment around the unit economics issue that has been raised. And it is true, it's very difficult to make it work given the purchasing power of the population. But at the same time, as one of you mentioned, that the middle class is growing, we are becoming better and better. The economies are improving, basically becoming better and better. But at the same time, as companies, we have to really become very innovative when it comes to reducing costs. We have to find a way of making sure we are delivering the cost per order is as low as possible to make it work. So I just want to give you a highlight of what you're trying to do at Glovo. We are looking at what we call bundling of orders, where one rider can deliver to multiple customers. We are also looking at ways of increasing efficiency for the riders, so that at least, for example, if a rider is able to do 2 orders in an hour instead of 1 order in an hour, you can afford to give them less amount because they are doing 2 orders in an hour. So some of these things that actually require tech for you to be able to execute, I think it's possible to make it work, given that there's actually a very huge opportunity. And yeah, final note is that yes, trust is a big deal, is a big issue. But I think, especially if I look at what has happened in Kenya, since the COVID situation, we've seen that people are now more open to using online platforms, especially for retail. And even after the COVID situation relaxed a bit, we are seeing more and more people now embracing technology. So we think that maybe COVID was the hack we needed for retail, and it's only going to get better.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. I think we enjoyed the comments from all of our panelists. We picked up a lot. It's a journey, like Dave said. Sam speaks about unit economics. That's critical. I think Brian says offline is still here. It will take a while. And Ismail is speaking about for Africa to crack its healthcare, it has to be taken online, and anything can happen there. I mean, Priscilla, you're building your footprint across Africa, the opportunities there. And I like the idea of you bunching orders. So you bunch a couple of orders, and that helps you manage unit economics. So the future is still great, online, offline. Integration certainly is where we're headed. I think that's what we all live here with. So what we do, I'm not sure we can take the question because we're running out of time, or can we, Adedaya, can we take one person, please?
Just one question. Just one question.
One person. So who is that person? I'm trying to get the person. We'll have a couple of hands up. Just one. I'll have a couple of hands up. Let's take. I think Wambui is. Wambui, you got your hand up. Can you go ahead with your question or comment? That's the only one we can take. The other ones you can chat that in. We'll synthesize that, and I think we'll get back to you somehow. Wambui, please, are you there? Talking is permitted, or are you muted? You want us to go to Virtue? Virtue, are you ready? Virtue, Chukwuemeka, are you ready? Virtue, not there. Basi, are you there? You have your hand up, but you're not responding. Talking permitted. Are you speaking? I think there's someone with a system that we call them, they are not able to speak. Olamide again, talking permitted, but he's not speaking. So I think we need to move on. Time is not our friend. Thanks to all the panelists for wonderful comments about integrating online and offline. Is someone ready to speak now? So Adedaya, hand over back to you at this stage. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chidi, and all the panelists for that very insightful conversations. It's quite unfortunate that this is the bit we can take. I'm very sure that there are lots of valuable information that could still come through today. But for those of us that have our hands up, please feel free to chat in your questions or your comments, and then we'll see how this is going. And while we'll try to see if we can take those comments, I'm sure that we're having issues. Oh, okay, someone is coming through at this point. Should we take this?
Tony, are you there? Tony, are you able to speak?
Yes.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Please go ahead.
All right. Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I personally run an e-commerce business, but we've had a lot of rundown for a couple of months. But my question now is, for the African space, we've had problem with quality check against pricing. I want to get suggestions. What would you suggest are the best way we can handle quality checks for African manufacturers? So for example, from electronics to automobiles to clothes, furnitures, and the rest, how do we do quality checks? We have two systems, but I need suggestions. The first system is if we have a government panel or a regulatory body in each of these countries giving us vetting each of the manufacturers, or we have a review system on ground, which is the one used by Alibaba and Amazon. So which of these systems would you suggest is the best for an African e-commerce manufacturers, how we vet quality checks? Thank you very much.
I think we'll have, let's see, who is going to try to attempt this? Dave, are you going to just make a comment on this? What vetting system would work best for us, regulators or feedback system, right? The customer feedback system that like Alibaba would use. Dave, you want to make a comment? Are you there? Is Dave there?
No, thank you very much. Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Beautiful. So I'm going to try to attempt a response, right? And so the issue of quality from what we've experienced, it's for most of the time, I would say you want to treat it, is it on a case-by-case basis, right? There is quality that looks at what was the expectation of a customer who bought an item that is supposed to be a low-cost item versus what he's expecting, right? For instance, you buy a shoe for, let's say, 12,000, and you're expecting the quality of a 50, 60,000 naira shoe, right? There's the issue of you buy a phone. The phone has been described to be a 2 gig RAM phone, and you expect the the quality or the processing power of a phone that is 8 gig RAM, right? So the bit that is very popular is the bit where there is some expectation from the customer that an item that is low cost would be quality. That's what is most popular that we've seen. Somebody makes a purchase on the site and is saying that this thing doesn't meet the quality that I expected, right? I think it's going to take the effort of regulation externally to be able to fix that problem, because when we tried to do an analysis recently, what we saw was that a lot of these guys who own shops, who sell, we run a marketplace, right? A lot of these guys who sell these products, where do they buy, where do they source the products from? What kind of products normally come down with these defects? The products in the general merchandise category are usually not as impacted as products in the fashion category, right? And we did our investigation and we found out that a lot of the products that come back with these complaints are products that are bought en masse from AliExpress, shipped into Nigeria, eventually gets to last mile. So you buy an item, the item, you haven't even used the item, it's probably broken, right? It's really going to be a top-bottom approach that would be useful for resolution. What's getting into Nigeria? What are the consumers yearning to buy? What can they afford? Of course, you will agree with me that the bottom of the pyramid strategy is what a lot of businesses are using to survive. Recently, Chicken Republic deployed the strategy to sell an egg, and it was this spaghetti they had, and they called the pack 500 naira. Now you expect that somebody who has bought that kind of product is going to come back to tell you about quality, what's the expectation. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So we need to live in the realm of reality. And I think what needs to happen overall at the regulation level is to try to see how we can put processes in place to have a minimum benchmark for products that are getting into the country. And for e-commerce players, they need to keep working on having a procedure for quality assurance, quality check. I think that's it's largely in place, but these merchants, these people who sell on the platform, they still find a way to go around it. Somebody brings, I will give you the instance of a jersey being sold on the platform, the authenticity of the jersey. And we've asked you to bring samples of this jersey. You go get us proper samples, right? You get us proper sample. We vet and we confirm that these jerseys are authentic, right? At the point where the customer has placed the order, you pack something that is different. This would largely happen for an item that is not warehoused with us. Of course, you know that the model that we largely run is a model where it is going directly from the vendor to last mile. So all of the process becomes a bit more cumbersome when you have, I see somebody saying it's the typical Nigerian leader answer. It's not the typical Nigerian leader answer. It's more around what we see as the reality. It's the reality. I've had my own fair share of experience also making purchases from platforms, right? So it is what is happening, and it's really a combination of efforts from all of the stakeholders that will address it, because you would not expect that when an item is purchased, I'm able to tell you if a lot of the items that are coming to the Nigerian market are items that have some form of quality check, quality assurance issues, it is not the platform that will fix it. It is from the source that it gets fixed. You go to the market, what's the general feedback that you get for home utensils? What's the quality? When was the last time you bought a tap head? How long did it last? You know, that's where the question, what is our SON doing? That's where the question actually starts from. It's not an online play. It's generally, it has to do with what is getting into Nigeria. And I think that all efforts needs to be put in that regard. Thank you. I hope I have been able to give some comfort around this.
Thank you very much, Dave. So Adedayo, please, you go ahead from here.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the feedbacks and the insight provided. So because of our time, I'm afraid we won't be able to do more than this. I mean, it's an ongoing conversation. Sure, we can't exhaust the entirety of everything that we have to cover today. So please, we beg to move on from here. But special thanks to all our panelists again, and of course our moderator for doing a great job. I picked up a few terminologies going forward. I think Ismail talked about choice revolution, bringing customer psychology into the conversations, and Dave also talked about enablers, logistics, and the need for adaptation. So exciting stuff, great learning sessions so far. Thank you once again for all the insights shared. So we're moving on from here. I don't know if we have the commercial from our sponsor, Slot Systems Limited. Can we just take that before we move into the experience sharing session?
Okay, so
our team, are we ready with the commercial, please? Okay, while we're doing that, I'll just go ahead and introduce our, okay, that's up now. Okay, go ahead, please. Okay, thank you very much for that commercial, and it's a privilege to have Slot be a proud sponsor of this. As a matter of fact, I gather that they are the sole sponsor for this edition of our virtual conference. A special thanks to the CEO who we will hear from in a bit. So right now we're moving to the experience sharing session. I'll be putting on the hotspot again, Dave from Konga, and of course, the founder and CEO of Slot, Mr. Nnamdi Ezigbo, will be sharing live experience. And this is the part that gets really exciting. So we're going to be learning from the things, how you've evolved in the last few years or decades that you've been in operations, and how the recent development disruptions brought about by COVID is impacting your business model going forward. So we've just taken the first 5 minutes generally to have a sense of what it has been like, what the journey has been like for Slots. And the question really is, could you just walk us through your experience running Slot in this period, given the transitions and the need for integration and all of that? Mr. Nnamdi, if you can hear me, please. I think you're muted.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adebayo. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you, Chidi, and all the panelists. Thank you very much. Well, I want to start by saying that omnichannel is a good option, but whatever channel any business wants to deal with or wants to adopt, it has to be a business decision. It has to be a business decision because such decision must align with the business model, and it has to be obviously a strategy that must align with the corporate strategy of the organization. So you don't just wake up and say, I want to run an e-commerce, or I want to integrate my online business and my offline business. So it has to be clearly a business decision that must align with the business model. So if you don't understand this, you might just be running into trouble. We've seen businesses that are basically online and they're doing well. We've also seen businesses that are basically offline and they're also doing pretty well. I would always want to say that with technology advancement, consumers now have more options. So they have multiple channels, multiple devices through which they can shop, through which they can buy. The whole essence is to create a seamless customer experience. So now the question is, should you as a retailer run a multi-channel or an omni-channel? Multi-channel means you have different options, different channels through which you can sell. You can sell through your offline stores, you can sell through your online stores. But when you try to integrate the online and the offline, that's when you begin to approach omni-channel. That's where you begin to, form the idea of omni-channel. So for me, the omni-channel integration or achieving omni-channel is a long journey. In my experience, I want to call it a long journey, which has to do with connecting the dots. In short, I want to say, we started business 20 years ago. My company, Slot Systems Limited, we're strong online and offline. We have 75 retail stores. And then 2 years ago, we thought of integrating. We came up with a business decision to integrate our online and offline. Just to remind you that our online store was actually launched in 2015. So we've been running these stores separately. So the online store drives the online transactions and the offline stores drive the offline transactions. So basically that's a multi-channel. Now, when you try to integrate the online and offline, you're going to be having a lot of challenges. And these are the things I'm going to be talking about later in my conversation. So I've listened to panelists talk about the benefits. I agree with you totally, because you're providing wonderful choices for consumers to shop. They can shop online, they can shop offline. But the issue is, how do you integrate your online and your offline? So it's a very important discussion. And I think if this is properly done, it has a lot of benefits to the retailer, and also it provides a lot of benefits to the consumer. To the consumer, of course, they have different channels, so they can buy through, they can buy from. And then to the retailer, it increases your market share, increases your visibility, provides you the opportunity to provide customer experience. Of course, the most important investment any retailer should make should be that of customer experience management. This is key. So I'll be talking about the journey so far, which has taken us about 2 years, and I call it connecting the dot era. Connecting the dot means you're starting from point A and you're trying to achieve or get to point B. So how do you take that journey? And I'm going to be very specific in terms of the experience. And I'm going to be talking more from the perspective of a businessman in Nigeria and a retailer as well. So when we started, it was more like trying to connect the online and offline. And we felt, oh, this is a wonderful business decision. This will align with our corporate strategy, and this will increase our market share. We're so impressed with the benefits to us and to the consumer. But guess what? There are a lot of challenges trying to achieve this business decision. One of the major reasons is the fact that you have to contend with the right technology. Technology. This is very big. This is very serious. So first, you have to have the right ERP that will drive your inventory management, that will drive your financials. And such ERP must be such that can be easily integrated, that can easily speak to other solutions or other applications. And so in terms of your ERP or your solution, you have to understand its functionalities. You have to understand its components. You have to be able to train your people to understand how this ERP works. All right, so you have to understand these challenges associated with the ERP. I'm talking about the offline right now in terms of managing your inventory, in terms of managing your financials. All right, so let's talk about the website applications. Still talking about technology. That's also another big task. This is a big task because you have to also make up your mind which of the website application would be most suitable for this purpose. And if you also want to customize your website application, you're going to get into a bigger trouble. And I think this is the kind of challenges that most e-commerce companies are going through today. All right, most e-commerce companies would always want to customize their front end while having a full version at the back end. And so when you try to customize your front end or customize any of your web application, you're also going to be contending with the challenges that comes with bugs, that comes with issues that has to do with integration. And so having two different applications, communicating, trying to make them speak to one another or to each other would always be a big challenge. So technology is very key. So you have to get it right. All right, so you have to shop for it. You have to get the right one. You have to be able to understand that this technology can be able to speak to other technologies and other applications. So technology is very important. You have to get that right when you want to achieve a omnichannel strategy. However, if you are running your system as a multi-channel retail business, that's simple. That is different. I'm trying to differentiate between the multi-channel and omnichannel. So for multi-channel, you're driving your processes through different options. You're providing different choices. But in omnichannel, you are asking all the technologies, the applications to speak to one another, to speak to each other. That is where the challenge is. So you have to contend with that. So technology is very important. All right. And then I move on to people, skill sets. This is key. Most cases, you struggle to find the right expertise in terms of people with the right skill sets. This is because of high demand for developers, high demand for people with such strong skills. Some of them are just recycling and moving from company A to company B to company C. All right. So you have to contend with that. And some of them also are relocating out of Nigeria, finding greener pasture in other parts of the world, like UK, America, Canada, you can name them. So you have to contend with people having the right skill sets. These are the kind of challenges you're going to be facing if you are proposing to integrate your online and your offline. So if you're able to do this successfully, you're obviously going to be increasing your market share. Again, payment options, payment platforms, trust associated with payments. consumers are still struggling to trust most of the payment platforms. Of course, a few of them have really stood out, and gradually they're gaining traction, they're gaining acceptance, but that's also has been a challenge. All right, so consumers want to, easily check out, easily pay, and complete their journey. So, but what happens if they can't trust the payment platform? I've listened to Angela when she was talking about payment, trust issues in Kenya, and I resonate with that. That is quite similar in Nigeria. So you need to understand this challenge associated with payment, and so it's a big challenge. And what about cybersecurity? Fraud has been very common, and I thank goodness that it's getting better. The banks in Nigeria allowed most of these fraudsters to open wallet accounts. So they could open wallet accounts, account names similar to your company name. And so what happened? They will use such platform to deceive customers because you're doing a promo online, and they'll ask you, oh, you can buy this online, you can pay online, and then pick it up from any of our stores. That was very, very devastating. And most companies went through that phase. And I'm happy that recently NCC, the regulatory body in Nigeria, has made a very strong point by introducing NIN, which is a way of capturing your identification and ensuring that people who have mobile lines are actually registered and their information is captured. So cybersecurity was a big challenge, and it's always would be a big challenge. I want to say that as long as these challenges are there, integration would always be a big trouble, a big headache. But we have to understand how to deal with this as a people, and as business people, we have to understand, how do we really get out of this? How do we reduce this exposure? How do we create safety for our customers? How do we create confidence for our customers? And these are the kind of things that every retailer should be prepared, to deal with. And then what about the issue of trust that has to do with the consumers themselves? Consumers in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria, are very skeptical about what they buy online. And so in most cases, they want to get information from the online platform, and we want to visit the stores to buy, see the item physically and pay for it. So it's a big challenge. Return rate is very high. People will come to your website, place orders, and ask you to deliver to them. So when you bring the product home, they'll tell you, oh, that's not the color I saw online. That's not the weight I thought. That is not the, I don't want this. And because you are operating on this cash on delivery policy or cash on delivery business model, you have problems. So until people begin to encourage, retailers, e-commerce, business people, until we begin to encourage prepaid style of payment as against cash on delivery, the e-commerce business would always struggle in Nigeria. We have to reduce that, all right? So if the customer is properly educated about the product he wants to buy, and he's willing to pay for it, he won't, all right, ask you to take the product back because he has paid for it. So that, in most cases, will make the consumer to spend more time to get the right information about the product and be sure that he actually wants the product. So he doesn't go ahead to order and then ask you to take it back. So most times, e-commerce retailers will claim that they sold ₦1 billion a month, but they won't tell you how much was returned. That would obviously affect your processes. It will obviously affect your financials. So these are the challenges we're going to deal with when we are proposing to, create an omni-channel business model. What about internet penetration? Of course, you have to contend with that as well. All right. Now, most e-commerce companies will tell you that they are one of their biggest or highest costs of operation is cost of acquiring internet services, right? The internet providers are still trying to get it right. So in most cases, you spend so much money to achieve that. And that's something to deal with when you are proposing or thinking about integrating your online and your offline. What about logistics? I've listened to some of the panelists and they mentioned this clearly that logistics is a big challenge, all right? So you're ordering something, the cost of logistics is high. This could be associated with bad roads. This could be associated with the risk involved. We've had several funny cases where the delivery man, who wanted to deliver products got into trouble with the customers. And so that obviously has made cost of delivery as higher than what it's supposed to be. So that is logistics. So how do we deal with this? And so at the end of the day, you are contending with how you manage operations. You're contending with how you manage people because they want to move from company A to company B because the right skill set is scarce. You're contending with cost of technology. You're contending with so many things that has to do with operation and integrating the online store. So I think it's a leadership decision. It is a business decision, and it has a lot to do with the leadership of the organization. All right. So why do you want to integrate your online and your offline? How does that impact on your bottom line? So if that's what you want to do, then you have to be ready to deal with these challenges that I just mentioned. And like I said, it's a business decision. So you must understand your business process. You must understand your business architecture. You must understand your assets. How financial strong are you? Is that something you want to do? Does it impact on your bottom line? Does it align with your corporate strategy? And so businesses who are running today as online stores are making money, and those who are running basically as offline stores are also making money. So it all depends on where their strengths are. It all depends on what their strategies are. So I would say that if properly implemented, omnichannel is the best option, but be ready to face the challenges. And for you to surmount these challenges, then you must understand the business landscape. All right. Are you operating in Nigeria? What are the associated challenges? Are you operating in Kenya? What are the associated challenges? All right. So you have to understand the people, understand their behavior, understand their purchasing power, and you should be able to formulate strategies that will align with your business model and align with the challenges associated with your community or with your country. So it's a journey, like I mentioned, is a journey that has to do with connecting the dots from point A to point B. How do you take that from point A and how do you intend to achieve your desired results at point B? Setting goals. I think most organizations or most retail companies have their strength either in offline or online. 80-20% would be a wonderful way to appraise performance. So if you're strong online, you can say, oh, I want to run with 80% online and I want to get 20% sales from the offline. And if you are strong offline, you can also work towards achieving 20% online. It is going to be difficult to achieve 50-50 in terms of how you appraise your performance online and offline. Are there challenges associated with the online business itself? Yes. Are there challenges associated with offline business itself? Yes. And so if you have these challenges and you're able to understand how to run them, of course, you will be able to survive the issues associated with those challenges. So I want to say that the omnichannel business model is beautiful. It's going to be wonderful because you're providing consumers opportunities to shop. They have different options. And for us, or for the retailer, is basically how do you provide a seamless business process? How do you make the customer journey seamless? How do you impact on the customer? How do you save his time? How do you create customer intimacy? All right. How do you gain product leadership? So those are the kind of things that every retailer wants to achieve. But the point is, you need to understand how these things work. Understand the business landscape. Understand the challenges associated with technology. Understand the challenges associated with every business decision that you are taking. So these are some of the things I think I should share from my experience in these last 2 years, that we came up with a business decision to integrate our online and our offline. I'm willing to take some questions that has to do with these challenges. And I hope you've been able to get some of the facts as clear as possible from the perspective of a businessman in Nigeria and also a retailer who has, who is, experienced in both the online and the offline business landscape. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nnamdi. I mean, audience, that's 3 years of consulting experience on the platter for you, man. That's great stuff, great insight. Thank you so much for always obliging to share your insights with us. One of the key takeaways for me is the fact that, you don't have to just go into the integration for the purpose just because other people are doing it. You must first of all understand your peculiar business need and of course what your target market is requesting or requiring of you before thinking in that direction. And we can't thank you enough for those insights. Thank you very much once again. If you have questions for Mr. Nnamdi, please drop it in the chat box. But at this point, we would like to call on Dr. Uchenna to give us a few thoughts on the next steps as far as the academy, the Africa Retail Academy is concerned. If we see such questions, we will come back again to address them. But for now, Dr. Uchenna, please, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nnamdi. Very, very insightful and thought-provoking, experiential, talk you've given us. It's so wonderful to hear from someone who has seen a lot and understands how things are happening on the ground. And so it's been a great opportunity to blend theory and practice in this conversation we've had. I've taken away a lot of interesting things from your talk. And in fact, we're going to put together an article based on the insights that you've shared and the insights of other panelists today on this conversation. So a big thank you for this. Also, thank you to Slot for powering this particular session. We are very grateful. And then I thank all the panelists from different parts of Africa. The rich thing about the Africa Retail Academy is the fact that you get those nuanced perspectives, those let's say insights about Africa that are not easily available out there. And we carefully plan each of these events and try to get speakers that are the most competent to handle them. So thank you to everyone and to Chidi, the moderator, as well. And of course, our dear MC Adedayo Faloko, who is excellent. Thank you. To answer and everyone, thank you. So a few, let's say, announcements just to give you a sense of what we are doing and what to expect going forward. So the first thing is that I'm pleased to announce that today we are launching a mentorship program for all those in the Africa Retail Academy. We actually have the academic director of this mentorship program here. I'll call him shortly to tell us a bit about it, but it's going to be one of the ways that together we will transform the retail landscape of Africa. So it's a great thing. And before he speaks, just for you to know also that we are putting together a book, which hopefully will be out in October, around building careers for growing retail businesses in Africa. Again, the link will be shared shortly on this platform and also by email later. In case you want to contribute a chapter, in case you want to share your own experience, would like to get the experience of people from different parts of the continent, including Nnamdi, some of what he has shared today will be very useful for that book. So we'd really look forward to having his contribution there. So the link for, taking a slot, should we say, to share your proposal will be shared. The other thing, you would see that some links were dropped about our ongoing certificate programs. We have these programs we've been doing to certify people in retail at different levels, and we've been on those, for a few months. So again, if you're interested in any of these well-curated programs to bring you up to speed in terms of what it takes to succeed in retail in Africa from the professional career and business perspective, I highly recommend that you take one of those certificate courses. We are also doing customized programs for people in retail, because we see that there's a lot of support that is required to thrive in the retail business. And so we are designing and running those. If you're interested, you can always reach out to us. Afolabi Oyewumi, who is here, he'll drop his contacts. He's also available to give more information on that. And then the last thing is that we are going to have what we call the Africa Retail Congress. It's going to be a big retail conference. This time will not be online, but will be in person at LBS towards the end of October. And of course, we will stream online for those who cannot make it in person, but we really want to have all of you in person, including those who are joining us from outside Nigeria. You will get more details about that conference later. But for you to know, our next webinar event will be on the 30th of July. And then after that webinar, the next thing will be this big conference we're putting together. So thank you. And I'll now call on Emmanuel to tell us a bit about this mentorship program. Emmanuel, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Uchenna. Just very briefly, as part of the offerings from the African Retail Academy, like Uchenna said, we are putting in place a mentorship service for retailers, and that will be at the ownership level and at the managerial level in those retail entities. So the whole goal of the engagement in this mentorship is to work with the retail owners and their managers to identify their business issues, whatever aspect of the business, whether from the people to technology to inventory and all of that, whatever those issues may be that they need help with. We work with them to articulate those issues, do some diagnostics around them, and provide advisory services in terms of the kind of solutions that can eliminate those business issues. So LBS will be rendering this service through mentors that we have already onboarded from our alumni network, people who have good experiences from both business and human resource management and all of that. And they will provide diagnostics and advisory services in terms of implementing whatever comes out from their engagement. That would be at the level of the retail business owners. So just diagnostics around the problem and advisory around the solutions. So the process will typically be between 4 and 6 months with numerous touch points during the process. But in terms of what LBS will do and what the retailer will do, LBS through these mentors, we help to facilitate the diagnostics, like I said, profile solutions, and give advisory around the implementation. The retailer will have to articulate the problems first by himself or herself so that LBS can come in and help to really analyze it, to really know where the issues are. The retailer has to own the improvement process, the implementation of all the solutions that have been derived from the engagement. So we have already, like I said, gotten some mentors that we have onboarded. We are in the process of engaging with retailers, those who need help with different aspects of their business. They will sign up for a very small fee to get some mentorship service. I think that's the summary I want to give. There are other things to say around it, but that's just the nutshell, in a nutshell what it means. So we'll be coming to you retailers to indicate. Actually, it was born out of retailers raising their hands to say, hey, we need help with different aspects of our processes. So, but we're now going to formally come to you for you to indicate if you truly now need the mentorship, and then we'll provide that mentorship service, all in the process of capacity building for retailers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that information. We're bringing this to a close now. Just as a follow-up, if you want to sign up for the mentorship program or get more information on all of this, do well to reach Brian through the links that we've shared in the chat box. While we do that, we would just like to take the question. There was a question that dropped for Mr. Nnamdi. I'm trying to locate the question right now. Okay, maybe you can go ahead. You can unmute. If you can unmute from your location, you can just tell us what your question really is. I'm saying my question is retail versus online conflict. How is Nigeria handling it? Okay, I think you've given permission to speak. Just 30 seconds. Re-echo the question if I didn't get it correctly, and our guests can take another 1 or 2 minutes to respond to that. Thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, great. Please shoot.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Pratik. I'm connected from India. I work for DreamWorks Nigeria. It's the largest e-commerce ICT organization which supplies, laptops and mobile phones, accessories, lifestyle products, and gaming products with retail presence across Nigeria. However, we came up with the online segment. So India is a matured population where we have 1.3 billion and Nigeria is more or less 202 million population. So India initially, when the growth of e-commerce happened, there was a lot of friction from the objection from the retail segments, which blocked the online growth. So did you face any kind of blocks from the retailer's point of view? Basically, online is bypassing retail and actually directly accessing the customer. Like that's it. That was my question. You can mute me.
Okay, I think we lost you for a bit. Can Mr. Nnamdi hear me? If you can, please just respond to the question. We're way beyond time. So just respond to the question and then we can wrap up on that note. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I didn't quite get that question. maybe you can help me talk a little bit about it.
Yes, online actually, if you assume that entire market no online is there, then the entire retail business is actually well balanced. Now, the moment online comes in the picture, the retail's business actually shrinks. So there is a lot of retailer objections which comes from the online segments. And if you see the rural markets, the sale per retailer is very high. If you see the urban markets, the sale per retailer was high, but it is shrinking down. So in that way, from the retailer's perspective, has there been any, conflict of opinion which is impacting the market dynamics in the online growth? I hope I could make myself clear.
All right, thank you. You made a very good point, and this is very correct. It is obvious that the online store would obviously take a part of the market share from the offline store, because of course it provides convenience. It provides the seamless approach to shopping. It is going to be normal. There's going to be a growth in terms of online business, no doubt, right? No doubt, just like what's happening globally. What we are saying is that in Nigeria, a reasonable percentage of Nigerians, especially those of the S generation, would also want to buy from the physical stores. And so sometimes they see the online store more of a platform to get some sense of understanding, to get education. So they go to the online store to study what they want to buy, have an understanding of what it is, the features, and they go to the physical store to buy, all right, or to shop. So this has a lot to do with the behavior of the Nigerian people. This might not be a global standard. This might not be what happens in Kenya or South Africa, but specifically speaking, in Nigeria, people also trust more when they walk into the store to buy. There is no doubt that the online store would not disrupt the physical stores, but it's going to be very incremental. It's going to be a gradual process. I'm sure I've been able to address your question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the response. Please, for Mr. Franklin, yes, you will be getting a recorded session maybe subsequently sometime next week. For now, that's basically all we can take. Dr. Uzo, how would you like us to close this? I'll pass this over to you.
Maybe you can play some music as people leave. Just to say thank you to everyone. You can play some music.
Okay, thank you. Our LBS support team, can you assist us with that? It's been an amazing conversation in the last couple of hours. Special thanks once again for attending, and it was insightful for you. And until next time when we come your way again, it's bye from myself and the LBS team. Bye-bye.
My name is Chris Ugbeche, Professor of Strategic Management and the current Dean of the Lagos Business School. Let me take you on a journey. As a member of the management board, I have the opportunity of understanding the workings of the school, the resources, the capabilities, and the strategic direction. As director of the Sustainability Center, I also brought something new into the school, but also something that helped in linking the school to industry. My experience in the private sector has also prepared me to bring something special into the classroom whenever I teach. And we are not supposed to be purely academic, but to make the students fit into industry when they leave us. Given the peculiarities of the present business landscape, many managers have found themselves in a very tight corner. And as such, at Lagos Business School, we need to address how we can help these organizations, not just to survive, but to thrive. So for us at Lagos Business School, it's obvious that the days of bringing everybody into the classroom is over. Our plan has been brought about by technology, COVID, and competition. We used to offer in-class, person-to-person programs. With COVID and technology, we brought in the hybrids, where some people will be in class and others can actually join from their homes or their offices. So you have this mass market product, middle is the hybrid, but our premium products are the face-to-face in-class, because we know that some executives still want to come into class in order to network and exchange ideas with their colleagues. This is how we're going to remain relevant. This is how we're going to compete. Lagos Business School started with the main focus of helping the business community to do better. We also make sure that even our young MBAs don't leave this place just thinking of profit maximization alone, but also how they can touch lives. So from the very beginning of the MBA program, they are introduced to what we call personal social responsibility projects, where the students realize that to succeed as managers, they must actually integrate both economic and social values and objectives into the way they run business. We've done a lot in the private sector, and we believe that it is time for us to now do the same in the public sector. Because if we have a vibrant public sector, the private sector will be the best beneficiaries from it. And our approach is to see how we can assist in the areas of governance, policy making, leadership, strategic planning. It's not an easy field to play. And the starting point for us is to move our breakfast club and start a version of it in Abuja. The breakfast club in Lagos brings together public sector players, private sector players. The more they talk, the more they realize the problems they have, the better they'll be in providing solutions. We currently have 2 global accreditations, the AACSB and AMBA. And these are 2 top accreditations that only about 5% of business schools all over the world have. We're also going for the 3rd one, EQUIS. And that will now give us what I call triple crown. And we want to do that within the next 2 years. We're not slowing down. Getting these accreditations and rankings does not stop there. We need to maintain them, because that's the only way we can prove that we're a top-class business school. And we'll be able to attract top-class faculty and also attract students from other parts of Africa and the world. Lagos Business School started 30 years ago as a small school, and over the years we have grown. Today we have well over 7,000 members of the Alumni Association, and these are people who've gone through executive programs and MBAs with us. We've just concluded our 5-year strategic plan from 2021 to 2025, and that's where we've captured the new LBS. And this is an opportunity for us to grow that tribe, because technology has now gotten a significant role to play in the future of the school. thanks to COVID, we have now accelerated the way we can reach other people. So our objective is not just to focus on people in Nigeria, but to extend our coverage to Africa and other parts of the world, because we want people who want to know how to do business in Africa to come to us. By that means, we will now extend and increase the tribe of LBS. We will not stop at this stage, because our objective is to be the #1 business school operating from out of Africa. And as such, we are going to build a business school that will be the pride of Africa, but at the same time compete effectively anywhere in the world.
The senior management program within the space of 5 years, I was able to rise to the position of chief executive, and I believe that the Lagos Business School knowledge that I gained, improved on the quality of the work that I did, and that was why I was able to rise. Beyond that, one of the greatest things I've learned from LBS, I've always seen myself as an ethical person, and I conduct myself in that manner, but I was able to get far more insight in terms of ethics and giving value, giving voice to my values, being able to have a more in-depth knowledge about consequence mapping, really looking at the subject of ethics and knowing that it can be practiced. I was able to appreciate it more and even commit much more, up to the extent that beyond the Lagos Business School education, I actually did further certification in ethics, so really I'm very happy for the experience that I've gained in the Lagos Business School, and it has reflected in the quality of my work and in the quality of my wanting to make a positive difference.
Lagos Business School is an institution that is creating a pool of leaders that are transforming Africa now and for the future. My EMBA experience has been very impactful. It has helped me to achieve my goal of becoming the Managing Director of a financial institution, United Bank for Africa, Benin Republic, and also in taking up a new role as Managing Director of United Bank for Africa, Tanzania.
Prior to joining Lagos Business School, I came from pharmacy background, so which means that I was exposed to courses like anatomy, like biochemistry, physiology, clinical pharmacy, pharmacognosy, pharmaceutics, etc. And therefore, Lagos Business School was an eye-opener for me because it took me out of my comfort zone, straight into uncharted territory. Was I apprehensive? Absolutely yes, because I didn't know exactly what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make sense out of the balance sheets. I didn't know if I was even going to understand what an asset was, what a liability was, etc. I didn't know what to expect, but I actually kept an open mind. And it's actually been a very great journey, going with Lagos Business School.
Before LBS, I struggled a bit with defining who I wanted to be myself based on my own choices. But going to LBS and going through all the classes, it made sense to me because it was natural for my personal abilities, my capabilities, and the fact that you could actually talk back to your facilitators to have a conversation, a dialogue, was better for me than in a place where I was told this is what it is, go and read the book, and that's it. So that's how Nigerians get educated generally in the uni. But LBS was different. It allowed me express, it allowed me learn in a way that was better for me, and it prepped me for my career choices to say, this is who I want to be, this is what I want. So I'm currently in Shell, and I've always been there since LBS, and I got recruited from the career fair.
At the time when I was taking the LBS program, I used to run a side business where I was making Ankara accessories. You know, I was just a passionate girl who was just turning her hobbies into a business. I didn't really know anything about entrepreneurship, and that's really what led me to LBS. It just made me to see that it was possible to run a successful business out of Nigeria.
During my MBA, I discovered my passion for helping entrepreneurs across Africa increase their business acumen. I was elected as a member of Beta Gamma Sigma. It's indeed the highest honor any business student in the world can achieve. I was privileged to not just be a member, but also be elected as the pioneer president in Lagos Business School. I'm sure that I would not have had the opportunity to achieve this feat if not for my experience in LBS.
Membership of the Lagos Business School Alumni Association plugs into a rich network of top corporate players in Nigeria, professionals, and entrepreneurs. The depth and breadth of the Alumni Association is amazing. And one of the very interesting experiences I had as alumni president was to walk through an airport, sometimes international. Somebody greets me, and when I look astonished, he says to me, "You are my president," or "You are my past president. I'm from the LBS AA." And so this shows you how powerful this is. And with almost 8,000 members, it is certainly a company you would like to keep, because taking a glance at the membership list of the LBS AA, it's like the who's who in corporate Nigeria. And that's a good place to be.
I was really inspired to go to Lagos Business School for a couple of reasons. One was I met a few people who had been to Lagos Business School, one of whom is my husband, and I could see a complete difference. It's one thing to go to undergraduate school, and it's another thing to be trained by experts, to be trained by professionals in different sectors from different fields who would help you in expanding the knowledge that you already have. And I thought I have to tap into that.